Acting Deputy President, I'm proud to rise to speak to this Greens bill to remove exemptions from our federal anti-discrimination laws that currently allow religious schools to expel lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender or gender-diverse students and to fire LGBT teachers and staff members simply because of who they are. The Greens have been fighting for years to end these exemptions. They were written into our anti-discrimination laws by the Labor Party and have persisted for far too long. These exemptions must be removed. Imagine being a student at a religious school and knowing that if you come out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or gender diverse or non-binary, you risk being expelled. Imagine the extra stress and burden that places on you at a time when you're already feeling particularly vulnerable. The majority of Australians have been unaware of these discriminatory exemptions, but for LGBT+ people working at religious schools, many of them have gone to work each day knowing that should they come out or let slip something that they shouldn't, or somehow have their sexuality or their gender identity discovered, they risk being fired and losing their job just because of who they are. These exemptions have a devastating impact on people's lives. Now, over the past week, so many people have come forward sharing their stories. We've heard how some teachers and staff members have been forced back into the closet as soon as they've been offered a job. We've heard how they feared holding their partner's hand in public in case they bump into a colleague or a student who could out them, and that would see them lose their job, lose their livelihood. And we also know that LGBT+ people already suffer worse mental health than their heterosexual and cisgendered peers. And it's because of the stress of things like these exemptions that mean that they could be expelled from their school or fired from their workplace. Rainbow Families Victoria have collected and shared with members and senators stories of LGBT+ families whose lives are being affected by our current discriminatory laws. A future stepmother of 5 children who's engaged to her same-sex partner spoke out this week saying, "I teach at a conservative Catholic primary school. I am constantly afraid that someone will find out and that I'll lose my job. I'm the main income earner and my employment is incredibly important. I worry that I will lose my job. I worry that my employer won't give me a good reference if she finds out. This could affect my future employment opportunities. I feel like a criminal and I've done nothing wrong." And for others, these discriminatory exemptions have prevented them from applying for their dream jobs. Tim Hoffman, in my home state of Victoria, shared his story with The Age earlier this week. Tim wrote, "I have a master's in theology and I want to teach in religious schools. However, I will never apply. I have absolutely no chance, as though I'm Christian, I'm an openly gay man." Mr Acting Deputy President, it was almost a year ago that the Marriage Equality Postal Survey results came in, showing that the majority of Australians supported ending the discrimination in our marriage laws and making marriage equality reality. It was a hard-fought and, for many queer Australians, personally difficult win, but it confirmed what we had known for years, that Australian people have opened their hearts and truly embraced their LGBTIQ+ family members, friends and colleagues. For years now, the majority of Australians have stood side by side with LGBTIQ members of our community in our fight for equality and against discrimination, and on this issue it is no different. A Fairfax poll released this week showed an overwhelming majority of 74% of Australians oppose this discrimination. I am so heartened and unsurprised that the vast majority of Australians do not support this legalised discrimination against LGBT Australians. Our parliament must support the people we represent and fix up these discriminatory laws. Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull ordered the Ruddock Religious Freedom Review last year as Parliament moved to legislate for marriage equality. It was said he did this as a sop to the right-wing, hate-filled Conservatives who continue to fight against equality until the very end. But it now seems that the Ruddock Review has not quite turned out the way they thought it would. It's only through the review's recommendations being leaked that the Australian people have been alerted to these discriminatory exemptions that have sat within our anti-discrimination laws for many years. This Saturday, voters in the seat of Wentworth will be going to the polls to elect their new representative to replace former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. And despite the Liberals comfortably winning this seat in 2016, there is a very real chance that the Liberals will lose Wentworth this Saturday. And this is because the people of Wentworth are shocked by what this Liberal government has done. Its devastating inaction on climate change, its ongoing torture of people seeking asylum, its interference and its funding cuts to the ABC. And in the Liberals' desperation to cling on in Wentworth, we've seen them release some shocking policies in the lead-up to this Saturday. Yet we are still to see Prime Minister Scott Morrison release the full copy of the Ruddock Review. And this is because the Liberals are afraid of drawing more attention to their awful policies towards LGBTIQ people. I mean, Ruddock is a former Liberal government minister, after all. His review, quite reasonably, can be seen a reflection of where this government is currently at with regard to allowing and entrenching discrimination. Of course, we have now heard both Labor and the Liberals speak up big over the last week about how we need to make sure that LGBT students are not discriminated against. And I was pleased to hear from Minister Cormann that he is going to now move quickly to amend legislation to stop the discrimination against LGBT students. I mean, it's been wonderful to see this backflip in the Liberals' position. It's also been wonderful to see the Labor Party come out to say that their position now is to end discrimination against students and to end discrimination against teachers and other staff. But it's only been because of the intense community pressure that both the Labor and the Liberal parties have changed their positions over the last fortnight. So us bringing on this debate today is a very important opportunity. It's an opportunity to get the government and the Labor opposition on the record about ending this discrimination before the pressure comes off after the vote in Wentworth on Saturday. And we heard Minister Cormann. We heard him speak and say, yes, he was happy and the government are going to move to end discrimination against students. But when it comes to teachers and other staff, he was silent. Despite the impact that this discrimination is having on teachers and staff at schools, the government remains silent, and one can only presume that their intention is to continue to prosecute the case for allowing those discriminations to continue on in our anti-discrimination laws, to allow the continuation of discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender teachers and other staff. But we've got the Wentworth by-election coming up, and it's important that the voters of Wentworth know, because the people of Wentworth in the Marriage Equality Postal Survey last year, they overwhelmingly voted for equality and against discrimination. Wentworth delivered an 81% yes vote in the postal survey last year. So they deserve to know, and through this debate they are actually being able to hear where Labor and the Liberals stand before Wentworth goes to the polls this Saturday. Mr President, I am really proud of the bill that we are debating today. It would remove exemptions not just for students at religious schools but for all teachers and staff members as well. And it would not just work to protect students, teachers and staff members on the basis of their sexuality and their sexual orientation, but on their gender identity. And trans and gender diverse people have hardly been mentioned in the public debate over the last fortnight. We must ensure that trans and gender diverse students cannot be expelled because of their gender identity, and that trans and gender diverse teachers and other staff members aren't able to be fired. Yesterday, Prime Minister Morrison said, and I quote him, "We must act right now, and that we can deal with this once and for all." Well, Mr Prime Minister, you have an opportunity to act right now and remove this unfair discrimination once and for all. And to do it, acting now, and particularly once and for all, means we've got to remove discrimination against students, but also against teachers and other staff. And we need to do it now. Labor and Liberal must turn their words into action and vote for this bill, vote for our Greens bill, to protect students, teachers and other staff members from being expelled or fired by religious schools just because of who they are. So I call on both the Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader to work with us in good faith and support this Greens bill today. No ifs, no buts. Together we can end this unfair discrimination once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you.